feel?
Okay. It's 9 o'clock.
Yes.
Good morning, everyone. I'm very pleased to open our virtual day of our conference on environmental peace building. Today we have 3 speakers on the topic of environmental peace building, actors, challenges and opportunities. My name is Maja Vodopivec. I'm assistant professor at Leiden University College in The Hague. So first we will have presentations between 15 and 20 minutes, and then we will open the floor for questions. You can raise your hand, ask questions, or send a message via chat. So without further ado, it's my pleasure to announce Akanksha Indora, who has completed her PhD at the Center for the Study of Social Systems, School of Social Sciences at Jawaharlal Nehru University. And Akanksha's presentation title is Environmental Populism and Religious Solutionism, the Populist Leaders and Their Rhetoric. Akanksha, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Chair. Thank you for the warm welcome and for the warm introduction. I'm Akanksha. Um, I think I should share my screen first. Yes. So the title of my presentation is Environmental Populism and Religious Solutionism, the populist leaders and their rhetoric. So in this paper, I'm trying to address the phenomena of environmental populism. And these two concepts, like environmental and populism, are very different concepts. But I'm just trying to understand when they come together, how they make it as a phenomena, as environmental populism. And here, why we are talking about the environmental concerns, as we are in the environmental peace building, we are asking the question about the actors, challenges, and opportunities. So where somewhere I'm trying to understand that why environmental concerns are important in the contemporary context, and trying to understand it with the recent populist theories and with the rise of the populist politics. I have also observed that with the rise of populist politics, the leaders, the political leaders, and even the environment movement leaders have started raising the concern around the environmental populism in the Western democracies, and as well as in the Indian democracy. I have seen how leaders have started talking about it. So before going to the major questions and the theoretical approaches, I would like to talk about the definition of environmental and populism to have a basic understanding of it. So environmentalism is an ideology which deals with the environmental problems, such as the vital issues uh, like pollution, environmental degradation, and resource depletion, whereas populism deals with the three major categories, that is the construction of the people, the construction of the enemy, and the construction of the general will. And populism deals with the social issues within a particular social situation, in a particular social crisis. The issues has been raised by the people or the political leaders or the populist leaders, and they mobilize the mass, they construct their public and their general will, and try to mobilize the masses. And it is a move towards a common cause. For example, it channelizes the emotion of the people towards a common cause. Like it can be anything, it can be any crisis, it can be nation, it can be national security, it can be nature or environmental issues. So before going to the environmental populism and theoretical debate, I would like to talk about bit about populism and the populist theories, like why I have come to this and this phenomena of environmental populism. So I have tried to understand the populism or the theories related to the populism, like how populist basically works, and uh, what are their basic agendas, goals, and the aims for the mobilization of the masses. How they strategize any issues. So populists are opportunists. They know that what to talk about, and sometimes they construct the crisis, sometimes they construct the issues, and sometimes the issues doesn't exist, but they make it, and sometimes they ignore or deny it, the real issues. For example, the climate change and global warming. And sometimes they address the issues which exactly does not or not necessarily to be exist, or the not to that extent which they uh, pretend. For example, national security and immigration. So it depends upon them. It completely depends upon them, like what to talk and when to talk about anything and what benefits them. They also have the capacity to mobilize the masses towards any cause. Uh, to understand this phenomena or to understand the theories of the populism, I have come across two major texts. Uh, First is by Mark Basin, Environmental Populism. This was the book which was released in 2018, and second was John Warner Muller, who talked about the what is populism, and he tried to provide the basic theories of populism in 2017. So, in Environmental Populism by Mark Basin, he says that the populism is functional because this is the time, or this is the high time where we really need to talk about it, because it should not be too late. And it's functional because uh, we really need to need to talk about the environmental causes through any medium. So even if a populist talking about uh, over an environmental issues. So it is the time where he or she needs to talk about it. Similarly, John Werner Muller in What is Populism, he tried to understand populism through three theories, that is socio-cultural theories, psychological theories, and he also talked about the policy implementation. Similarly, recently I have understood Sconfianza's, like I have come across Sconfianza's work in 2022, where he tried to uh, develop four categories to understand the environmental populism. So first he talked about right-wing populism and climate denial ideology. Second, he talked about resource populism. Third, eco-populism. And fourth is populism of the environment movement. So these four categories are important, but in the context, in particular context. So here, two major categories that I'm drawing from his work. That is right-wing populism and climate denial ideology. And second is populism of environment movement, particularly in Indian context. Now, why I'm taking these two categories? Because first of all, with the rise of right wing populism in Indian context, the religious rhetoric around the environmentalism started emerging. And second, I'm talking about the populism of environment movement because I have observed that there is a Narmada Bachao Andolan, Save Narmada movement, which is like going on. Still, it is going on and have been a very important environmental movement in India, in the state of Madhya Pradesh, where I have also conducted my fieldwork. Now, why I have chosen this uh, field or this state for my fieldwork? So, I'm talking about the socio and political context a bit and the cultural context to understand the phenomena properly. So, for that matter, I have tried to understand that why this region of Madhya Pradesh is important, because uh, there in this state, the in Madhya Pradesh state of India, the religious emotions are attached to the nature, that is Narmada River, which is very important for its people. And this state also constitute of the indigenous or the tribal communities. Around 60% of indigenous communities are there, and both Hindus and non-Hindus, including. And from generation to generation, they have the belief on this river, and they are attached not only on the basis of their cultural practices and the religious belief system, but their livelihood is also dependent upon this natural resource. However, this water resource is not only the water resource for the masses, but it has the religious significance. And that's why the people there call it Ma Narmada, means giving it, signify it as a mother, and also revolves around it. This is around 1300 kilometers long river, and some people walk around it like barefoot, and some people use the different vehicles to revolve around it. And that's why this river is considered as a live entity for the people there. And along with it, there are four other sacred rivers like Ganga, Yamuna, Godavari, and Kaveri. They also have this religious significance in India, but there is a belief among the masses that a dip in all of the five rivers washes one sins away. But for Narmada River, only seeing only seeing it would wash all the sins away. So this is the major, belief among the masses. So, first of all, I would like to talk about the right-wing environmental populism in Indian context, where I'm talking about the political leaders. I'm also claiming them as a populist, and I'm also talking about the administration positions, how the different administration position using the religious rhetorics to save the environment and to save this Narmada River. So, and how also they're trying to emerge as a leaders by using this rhetorics. So right-wing environmental populism is like Confianza's right-wing environmental populism and climate denial ideology. I have taken this category to in this paper, but uh, the climate denial ideology is not exactly fit in India because the political leaders or the populist leader are addressing these issues, are addressing environmental issues at the national and international level. They're not ignoring it, they're accepting it, but they're using the methods in a different ways. So, which I'm addressing here. So, there is a one council in Madhya Pradesh that is Jan Abhiyan Parishad that is working under the Planning and Economic Statistical Department, Government of Madhya Pradesh. And it is formed to fill the gap between the Madhya Pradesh system and NGOs. So, this Jan Abhiyan Parishad is managed by high level authorities, and it is also organized under the supervision of Chief Minister of Madhya Pradesh, that is Shivraj Singh Chauhan. The people at different administrative posts, they are also using this religious rhetoric to save the river Narmada. So I would like to give certain like a few example. Like there is a Namami Devi Narmade, there is a Seva Yatra. In 2016, it's kind of a procession or a program introduced by the state government to make people aware of cleanliness, community awareness, and water protection to control the level of pollution in the river. Similarly, uh, because whenever their time comes, when there is a election time, the political leaders they use the religious rhetoric to mobilize the mass, and this is their vote bank kind of, and they also revolve around the river, and their manifestos also reflect environmental concerns, uh, and they also use the other contending ideologies, for example, Ambedkarism or Gandhiism, irrespective of that, uh, they are not ardent supporter of these ideologies, but they do it, and that's why I'm considering it as a right-wing environmental populism in the theories of right-wing environmental populism. Now, if I move towards the populism of environment movement, this is the another category of sconfianza, and which is aptly, suitable in the Indian context when we are talking about the environment movement in India. So, as I have told that there is a Narmada Bachao Andolan, Save Narmada movement, which is very prominent from last 38 years, and that was started uh, by the leader Medha Patkar. She was an environment movement leader, and the movement is still going on, and the major aim of this movement was to uh, not to not to you know to not to allow government or the corporates to establish their development projects and not to be the reason of the displacement of the people or the several other indigenous communities. And that's why this movement has been started. And in the Indian context, when I'm talking about the environmental populism, um, I'm considering this movement as a populist movement because this has also reflected the religious rhetorics, which has been used by the leader Medha Patkar in during this movement. Uh, for example, she is associated with the left-wing ideology in a certain sense, but at the same time, she is claiming herself as a pro-environmentalist through her action strategies and methods of mobilization. Second, Narmada Bachao Andolan is majorly considered as an environment movement, but it also addresses other questions or the other issues which are related to the lives and the livelihood of the people, displacement issues, land rights, environmental issues, and issues related to the women. So I'm criticizing this movement uh, by taking the idea of this Confianza's work because he's also criticizing the populist movement, claiming them as a populist movement, that is Extinction, Rebellion, and Fridays for Future, because these movements have not only addressed the climate issues, but also addressed patriarchy dominant, heterosexism, and militarism. And third, these local leaders contribute the most to shaping a populist movement. Leaders of the environment movement generally frame their struggles in terms of small people and unimportant people against the corrupt and exploitative elites such as big corporates and governments. Meaning, the in the populism theory, when we are talking about the construction of the people, means you are constructing the mass under a common cause, and you're also constructing the common enemy. So this enemy is constructed contextually. So here, like in this moment, uh, they have constructed government and the corporates as the common enemy. Uh, Fourth, the movement was based on the other comprehensive ideologies. For example, this movement has also adopted other ideologies related to Ambedkar, Gandhi, Subhash Chandra Bose, and Bhagat Singh, which were the prominent ideologues in India. And the leaders of the movement have framed the environmental concerns on the basis of aesthetic, symbolic, and material natural resources. So it is very contextual, like at what time, what should be used. So sometimes they have used the aesthetical means, sometimes they have used the moral means, and sometimes they have used the religious and emotions to mobilize the masses. So I would consider them it as a strategies of the leaders. Environment movement leaders has also used the religious strategies like through their slogans and the prayers. In finally, like in conclusion, I would like to talk about my findings and observations. Um, so through this reading of the populism and the theories of the populism and trying to understand the phenomena of environmental populism, I have come to the conclusion that one should not limit populism to the political leaders merely, but or the political parties. We cannot only say them as a populist, but the environment movement leaders can also be populist because um, as Mode also talked about, Cass Mode also talked about, Arvind Kejriwal's anti-corruption movement was a populist movement, and because they were able to broaden their mass and under a common cause, under a common issue of the corruption, and then he came to the power on to the politics. And similarly, Medha Patkar environment movement, which was also like I'm considering it as a populist movement, though it was environment movement, but like through certain strategies, methods, approaches, I have come to this conclusion. And both of the both of the political leaders and the environment movement leaders have used the religious rhetoric. Though during the field work, when I was questioning to the environment movement leaders, like whether have you used the religious means to mobilize the mass? So they have said no. But while you're looking at their strategies and methods, you come to this observation, you come to this conclusion that they have used in different micro and macro institutions, though their aim, goal, and intensity could be different. They have not used the religious means to that extent uh, as the political leaders has, but yes, they have used. Uh, finally, I would like to say that there are 3,000 plus NGOs which are working for the environmental causes in the state of Madhya Pradesh, but still the issues are unresolved. Uh, there are several organizations under the Janadhan Parishad, under this council. They're working for the environmental causes, but still the problems like sand mining, developmental projects for tourism, invasion of capitalism, a forest cut, and exploitation of natural resources are still continuing. And with the rise of populist politics, with the rise of the right-wing populist politics, the religious means have been used more, and also the rhetoric in the contemporary times uh, are more religious rather than the you're giving the practical solutions to the masses. Or you're more towards the yatras, or you're more towards the giving solutions to the people towards the uh, environmental causes in terms of very moral and sentimental ways. Thank you so much.
Many thanks, Akanksha, for a fascinating presentation, and I'm looking forward to discussing it. After two more presenters will present on their research. So it's a pleasure to introduce the next speaker, Dr. Samjhana Bista, who is a country director at Dan Church Aid in Nepal. She holds PhD from TU Dortmund University and has an extensive research and practical experience in development field and policy solutions related to climate change. Dr. Bista's presentation's title is Protecting Women Environmental Human Rights Defenders for Sustainable Household Level Consumption, Challenges and Opportunities. Without further ado, Dr. Bista, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I'm just trying to check how do I share my presentation. I cannot share the screen, right? I am supposed to share only.
Give me 1 minute, Samjhana. I'm gonna allow you to share the screen.
Right.
Now.
Yeah, sure. I will share my screen. Is that visible now, or is that visible now? Right. Okay.
Yes, it is.
Hello, everyone. Yeah. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, Maja, for introducing me already, and Samjhana. And when I applied for this conference, I was still a student, so I am like really feeling very relieved that I have completed my study from TU Dortmund University. And this presentation, initially when I proposed, it was a bit different, and I would like to now present it in a bit different way. And so the context here is I'm going to talk about the context in western part of Nepal. Nepal is a country next to India, like the previous presenter has already presented. Is a small country in South Asia, if many of our audiences are not so much aware of it. So I'm going to talk about a context where I call people working for the environment protection as environment human rights defenders, who also protect the nature and they protect the rights of those who are vulnerable. And the idea is that people, if they are conserving the nature and if they are engaged in conserving the nature, then they are also likely to practice environment-friendly practices at their household, such as sustainable consumption. That is the idea. And I will present briefly about what is the context and background in that area, and what have we done? Because I am also a practitioner, I will first present you some of the things about the study that I was engaged in myself as the PhD student, which I have completed. And because I was also working in this organization, we were trying to build on some of the projects supporting the findings of my study. And recently we have been able to raise fund for that. And I'm going to present about what now, right? So the research with the practice. In the context of Nepal, the natural resources consumption is rapidly increasing, and it's not only in Nepal, it's a global issue. And then this increasing consumption pattern, of course, it has caused a lot of environmental pressure and degradation. And with the localization, also the way we consume has changed a lot, because we, and when I say people, in the countries like Nepal, we tend to prefer more modernized products and more, we are following the globalization, and we are slowly forgetting what is more environmental friendly. And there are many adaptation practices that have been actually introduced, and Nepal is one of the countries which is known for its very good conservation efforts, especially on the natural resource conservation. And it has a history of many years of community forestry management in Nepal, and especially women, the indigenous group, so-called vulnerable groups in Nepal. They are engaged in this kind of conservation, but nevertheless, the consumption at the household level and at the local level, they are going two different parts, so they are not in the same pace. And that is the context. The another context is because there are so many people, indigenous group women, they are engaged in these conservation efforts, there still is a lot of cases of gender-based violence. And in general, 1 in 5 women experience gender-based violence in Nepal, and the environmental stressors like the climate change, it has caused more gender-based violence, because many men in the western part of Nepal, they migrate for a job to other countries, and women are left with the agriculture land, and they are left with the natural resource management responsibilities. And if something happens, like if the natural disasters, untimely rainfall and flood happens, and if their land is somehow degraded, if their produces are flooded, then they are blamed. Women are blamed for that. And we also had the cases where women committed suicide because they were blamed for what they had not done, and they were not acknowledged so much, despite working so hard for the conservation of nature. And although they are in the executive committee, they have very limited access to the resource decision making, right? So they are the workers, but they are not the ones who enjoy all the rights and decision making power. That is the context. And what am I presenting more? And that was the context. And in that context, I did my PhD with the title Sustainable Consumption for Effective Ecosystem-Based Adaptation. So I was trying to see the link between the household level consumption of resources and the effectiveness of the adaptation practices. That was what I was trying to see. And as I explained at the very beginning, I had several results found out, and we were trying to build on a project, because that was a research, and based on that research, we designed a project so that we are able to help these women who are actually the environmental protectors to overcome the gender-based violence cases. And we designed the project, and it was recently funded by IUCN and USAID under their RISE grant challenge. It is mainly focused on the gender-based violence within the environmental setting. So it is going from research to the practice. So for my own research, when we collected the data, it was mainly household level survey, key informants interview, focus group discussion, things like that. And we used that research for the design of this project. And now we, our approach to implement the project is that we will do some capacity strengthening of the local government, will empower the marginalized group, especially to advocate for their own rights and access to resources. And we will also try to identify what are the harmful practices, and we will promote the positive masculinities within the community forest user group and the traditional leadership structure in the project area. And we will also foster a collaboration and knowledge sharing among the stakeholders that we have identified. That has been the approach in this project. And I will a bit more in that. In the next slide, so this is the map of Nepal, and what I'm talking about is especially in this highlighted area, which is just the western part, and most of the areas, most of the geography, it is linked with the India border. So it's northern part of India and southern part of Nepal. So what are the opportunities we have found is when women and indigenous group and these people are engaged in community forest management. So community forest is actually, these are given to the community to manage and also utilize the resources, right? So opportunities we have identified in these areas are like people are practicing construction of shades in their home to deal with the heat that they have during summer. And they have done plantation around their house. They are linked with different association in their community. They have rooftop garden and kitchen garden. They constructed the irrigation canals, and they have maximized the use of water, so the water is not wasted. And they have also practiced using the organic manure. So they have practiced a lot of ecosystem-based adaptation efforts in their household also, when they are the member of community forest user group. So I have considered it as it is an additional benefit that they have practiced themselves because they are the member of community forest user group. And if they were not a member of community forest user group, they wouldn't have access to so much knowledge and information, and they would not be able to practice all this kind of very environment friendly activities at their home, so-called like the sustainable practices. But then when we talk about the challenges, despite, I mean, they have practiced a lot of things and they have access to information, their leadership has also improved. But the challenge for these community forest user group members, the women, who I have also called right defenders here, and they are having some challenges because they are not able to coordinate so well with the local governments, the local authorities, because they themselves have limited knowledge and limited understanding on climate change impact and the climate induced disasters. They themselves have a very little knowledge on mitigation and adaptation technically, and also the local government has that kind of little knowledge. And that is why they are not able to acknowledge all the work that women have done for the environmental protection. And that is why they frequently come into the conflict with the local government. In addition, it's not only with the local government, they are also attacked by the smugglers and poachers, because as a member of community forest user group, they try to protect their community forest and they try to protect the animals that are living inside the community forest. And that is why they are attacked by the smugglers. And they also face a lot at their own home, because they tend to go out for the sake of community forest management, and they're so male member in the house, if they are not acknowledging their work so well, and then they are also physically violated and assaulted by the security forces, sometimes the park management authorities, and they face this kind of harassment when they are managing the high value forest resources. That is the situation. So I mean, these are the challenges that these women groups they are facing when they are managing the community forest user group. And that was these are all the information that we identified during the research, the challenges, and that's what we presented. And what DC is doing now to deal with this is, now I'm going to present you some of the things to deal with that piece we are thinking in the context of the environmental setting. And DC is a Danish humanitarian organization and a development organization. It's called Dancers Aid, and it has country offices in 22 countries. And we also have the office in Nepal. And fighting extreme inequality is one of the theme of this organization. And so what we are doing is we are engaging the community forest user group, youth group, and the broader indigenous community, which is called the Paru community. And right now what we are doing is we are orienting these groups on the legal frameworks on environment protection. What is there and what are the punishment they would get if they are violating the rules and regulation, and if they are also violating the rights of those who are protecting the environment. And we are also doing the campaigns, mass mobilization, and we are engaging the media to break the social barriers, and also to bring out a lot of stories that are within the community forest, and that has to do with women's rights violation. And that is one area. The next area is not only the community forest user group themselves. We also believe that we need to act and work more with the traditional leaders and the influencing groups and networks that are in the community. So we are actually linking the community forest user group members, especially women, with those kind of traditional leaders. We are also orienting them and helping them access and increase their access to these platforms so that they are able to raise their own voice and speak out loud. And we are also building the capacity of these traditional leaders and healers in the community so that they are able to create that enabling environment for the community forest user group to work well, especially the women. And on the other hand, because it is so important for us to work closely with the local government, we have that structure where we have the federal, provincial, and local government. And local government are very powerful right now in Nepal, and we need to work very closely with them. And that is why we also need to build the capacity of the local government and all the associated structures with them. So through this project, we also seek to work with them, with the local government, helping them develop their own plans and policies so that they are able to create an enabling environment for this environment human rights defenders, including the community forestry user group, and the teachers, the traditional healers, everyone who are engaged in this. And so that a more peaceful environment is created and this kind of violation doesn't happen at the community level. So that is what we are doing this year as an organization, linking it with the challenges that we have. That would be it about my presentation. I will stop here, and if there are any queries, I would like to deal with that later on. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Samjhana, so much. It was a fascinating presentation. Now I would like to introduce Daniel Machane, who is a full-time PhD candidate in the Department of International Relations at South Asian University. His master's degree was in Peace and Conflict Resolution from the University of Mysore. He has previously served the United Nations system in India and East Africa and worked with IBM India in South Asia. Daniel's presentation will be about liminal spaces in refugee camps and about gender and peace building. So Daniel, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Maja. Allow me to share my screen. I hope my screen is visible. Okay. Thank you. Good morning and good afternoon once again. Today, I am honored to present to you critical exploration of this intersection of gender and peace building in a unique and challenging context of refugee camps through the frame of liminality. To begin with, I would like to start with what Victor Turner once stated, that liminal spaces are places where transformation is possible. So this is an humble attempt to examine the nexus between gender and peace building in the liminal space of refugee camps. So in this paper, I am employing Turner's concept of liminal space. So as we all know, in the context of humanitarian crisis, liminal spaces are often characterized by instability and insecurity, and it's a transitional space. But paradoxically, it also provides an opportunity for transformation and drive change amidst ambiguity. So I have attempted here to gain a deeper insight into how asymmetrical gendered experiences shape how refugees can access resources, opportunities, and protection respectively. So I employ the Turner's concept of liminal space into the case study of Cox's Bazar's refugee camps, looking at how this space has been a transformative experience given the lived experiences of refugees, and thereby providing key insights that can be leveraged to inform policy decisions, especially aimed at harnessing women's peace building potential. To move forward, my research question centers around how do gender and peace building function together as force multipliers in the liminal space of refugee camps, especially when confronted with gender-based violence. So I'm trying to elucidate those pathways and opportunities for transformation towards gender inclusivity and social healing, despite the contextual challenges that exist in liminal space, and try to reconfigure how the same space can act as an opportunity and the transformative platform to deal with gender-based violence and thereby contribute to peace-building efforts in those liminal spaces. When we look at the existing literature, there is a predominant evidence with respect to why and how women are crucial partners in peace-building efforts. And increasingly, it's important to recognize the newer roles women take up, especially those non-traditional roles in the context of building back better. It's also important to note that there have been varying definitions of peace building across different organizations, how the term peace building has been deployed by different organizations time and now, and especially when the term itself is quite new, when it came into existence in 1976 through the works of Jon Galtung, but only in 1992 it came into UN system as part of the intergovernmental debates through a landmark report called An Agenda for Peace. And later on, John Paul Lederach extended the meaning of this term peace building in an integrated approach, especially in terms of its dynamic in social construct. So much of the literature have largely focused on women's conditions, not women as an agency or as a lived experiences. So most of the donor-driven interventions are focused on such differing peace-building definitions and often lacking the context and perspectives. And it is in this context that I would like to look from the frame of liminal space, how this can act as a peace building potential. So overall, while there are challenges in terms of fragmentation, lack of integration, and limited research, there also has a tremendous scope or significant opportunities for transformative change guided by international resolutions, especially the UN Security Council Resolution 1325 or the Beijing Declaration, coupled with critical feminist insights and existing practices. So overall, the literature is very robust, but I've tried to identify certain gaps which can be addressed by employing the liminality to a particular case study. When we look at the gaps, overall, the trend has been on macro level analysis, especially in the post-conflict settings or active conflict zones. But there have been very few works in terms of aligning the nexus of gender and peace building in the context of liminal space. So the experiences or the lived experiences of refugees from the point of view of an intersectional studies, looking at the different layers of identity has also been less. So given the significance of this theoretical framework and the real world policy implications, I aim to address this gap by looking at those key insights and analysis of liminality, gender and peace building through a revelatory case study of Cox's Bazar refugee camp. And this is about the conceptual framework wherein I use Victor Turner's concept of liminal space, where it identifies key features, communitas, anti-structure, and symbolic inversion, wherein I try to apply these features into the Cox's Bazar refugee case in order to understand those gender and peace building dynamics. And this concept of liminality has been widely applied in anthropology, sociology, psychology, and religious studies, but I wanted to take this opportunity to apply in a peace building context and draw an interdisciplinary insight from this. So when we look at the liminal space from Turner and Lederach's perspective, of course, these entities are somewhere in between. It's a transition space characterized by insecurity and instability, but at the same time, these spaces are where the seeds of peace can be planted. And this provides an important theoretical framework for understanding liminal spaces that can be used to promote peace building during a humanitarian crisis. So these are the three key features of liminal space, where communitas highlighting on the solidarity, where it brings together those people based on their common concerns and causes. And where an anti-structure, on the other hand, it plays an important role in temporarily suspending those norms, allowing them to open up and share their concerns, organize and mobilize their campaigns. And finally, symbolic inversions talks about women are taking on non-traditional roles such as leadership roles in camp governance and administration, be it with respect to the environmental landscape management or even some of the gender related issues. So thus the liminality suggests that it has a transformative potential, providing a space for groups and individuals to challenge the existing power structures and norms. More importantly, when we look at the liminal space construct to analyze the gender and peace building dynamics, so it's very important for us to understand that there should be a presence of enabling and supporting norms coupled with robust protection systems that are functioning in place in the liminal space, so that the gender issues can be approached from a programmatic point of view or from an intervention point of view through a customized or a tailored approach or a targeted peace building initiatives. So the key message here is that peace building initiatives can be employed proactively rather than looking at post-conflict scenario as a preventive measure, extending their utility beyond the context of post-conflict situations. So if you look at some of those supportive and enabling programs, there are many such programs which I have not listed here, such as the community-based safe shelter. This initiative provides immediate safety for survivors with other refugees while voluntarily hosting them in their shelters. And more importantly, telling their stories, like sharing their stories is an important way for people to process their experiences and begin to heal. So it can also serve a way for people to open up, listening to each other, and more importantly, building trust, which is an important element of peace building. And as such, there are many such interventions by international humanitarian organizations like UNICEF, UNHCR, UNFPA. For example, Girl Sign program, wherein it give young Rohingya girls the skill set, knowledge, and the social network that can protect themselves from gender-based violence as they navigate through adolescence and beyond. And there are programs like Male Role Model, wherein the men and the youth who have already experienced violence by themselves, they proactively engage in those initiatives to hold gender equitable beliefs. So there is a causal linkage in that respect, wherein gender-based violence definitely disrupts peace building efforts in the liminal space, creating an environment of fear, mistrust, and insecurity. So the presence of both supportive norms and protective framework, which is largely driven by the international law under the aegis of UNHCR, it definitely leads to gender inclusivity, wherein ultimately gender inclusivity can lead to improved conflict resolution, community cohesion, and foster peace in refugee camps, contributing to the overall positive peace outcomes. So when we look at the case, I mean, not much to explain because most of us know the situation of the Cox's Bazar camps, but just to highlight on few statistics, like according to UNHCR, 51% of the total refugees is comprised of women and girls. If you look at the IRC report, 81% of gender-based violence in refugee camps are from the intimate partners, while 56% are incidents which can be attributed to physical violence. Of course, I've tried to capture a few stories from the UNHCR backed programs. What are those kind of lived experiences by women and girls? So with this background, I've tried to deploy liminal space concepts or features of liminality. Basically, I've tried to demonstrate how such space can contribute to renew some of those existing shared networks and opportunities amidst challenges. It's also important to understand that the communitas, anti-structure, and the symbolic inversion of hierarchies have really facilitated women to take on non-traditional roles and have asserted their agency in camp administration. So women and girls were able to negotiate spaces in camps that could be aligned to social justice. Symbolic inversion enabled them to challenge those prevailing norms and power structures that may have perpetuated gender inequalities and restricted their involvement in decision-making processes. While women are obviously were marginalized in the previous social context, but in the current context, they were able to form new bonds and relationships. So GBV as a lived experience definitely has hindered the capacity of women to influence peace building efforts, but at the same time, there have been innovative programmatic interventions by international governmental and humanitarian organizations, which have led to social behavioral changes, empowering both men and women to change their approach towards their peers. So one such example is with respect to psychosocial strategy to address mental health problems. And there is also an example of an incident reporting mechanism where the community exchanges facilitates this information between the women's groups and participants in the local decision-making process. And these informal networks enabled by the three key features of liminal space have played a vital role in raising the voice and taking up those leadership positions and proactively engage in mitigating gender-based violence. So again, I argue here that when I started analyzing the Cox's Bazar refugee camps through the Turner's liminal space framework, definitely provided a nuanced understanding with respect to peace building processes in such uncertain environments, especially in terms of developing refugee peace building capacity and conflict resolution practices. So the presence of humanitarian organization, their interventive program, it has enabled both men and women to work together in a renewed partnership to have a dialogue. And I have also demonstrated that this external change catalyst combined with the refugee women's resourcefulness to negotiate, empowering new social configuration amidst adversity, highlights a key possibility of liminal environment to endanger transformative openings if leveraged effectively. So given of the refugee camp situation, it has been more clear and evident for me that such spaces, when looked at from a particular lens or a framework, it can offer many avenues to cooperate, many avenues to partner, many avenues to bridge those dialogue in terms of shared responsibility towards a common concern, especially in terms of building that solidarity and navigating through challenges and tapping on those existing national and international networks to make things better and build back better. So in order to conclude some of my conclusive remarks, that of course, given the complex and multifaceted relationship, this as very clearly facilitates that existence of supportive norms and robust protective frameworks within the liminal space definitely can lead to gender inclusivity, thereby making a significant and constructive contribution to the outcomes of peace building initiatives. Of course, the constraints remain, like gender-based violence continues to occur in refugee communities worldwide, but a more nuanced and comprehensive understanding of the intricacies of factors in the liminal space of refugee camps is required. So harnessing women's participation is crucial to address GBV. I think these gaps, there are gaps in terms of knowledge and information management across different actors who are managing refugee camps. If that can be harnessed and bridged or synced, that gap can also be closed. So this eventually guides us to understand how protection needs can be tailored or addressed to reduce or eliminate any form of gender-based violence as a way to build peace and create a safer and harmonious space for refugees. While progress has been made, of course, when we look at how women are disproportionately impacted by violence, the liminal space has enabled new solidarity. It has allowed women to proactively raise their voice and participate and advocate for their reasons. And also it has enabled women to take on leadership roles, challenging those existing power structures. Of course, it's very important to utilize international resolutions, a proactive approach towards building capacity of refugees in terms of conflict resolutions. And overall, understanding these dynamics is crucial for policymakers or humanitarian actors to leverage on such opportunities, especially while addressing those structural violence, promote gender inclusivity in order to reduce GBV. So ultimately, displays a nuanced understanding to contribute to fostering peace within those refugee camps. And this can be a key insight in terms of tailoring or targeting services focused on GBV prevention and response tasks. It will definitely go a long way in terms of assisting social mobilization and thereby contributing to women's empowerment in the liminal space, such as refugee camps. So I would just like to conclude with this approach that it's been an interesting insight for me to apply some of these concepts and see how things have gone so far. Okay, thank you, Maja.
Thank you, Daniel, so much. And so we completed all three presentations. I do have some questions, but before maybe I ask questions, I would like to invite the audience. Are there any questions at this moment for our presenters?